Hello everybody, Ghost Hunter Larry here from the Ghost Hunter Dan Nova Project, and welcome to our very first episode of Paranormal Tech, brought to you by ParanormalWarehouse.com. Now today, we're going to be talking about my favorite piece of equipment that we have at the Ghost Hunter Dan Nova Project, and that is the Sony AX33 4K Handycam. Now you're probably looking at this camera and you're thinking, Ghost Hunter Larry, why is this camcorder your favorite piece of equipment? And truth be told, there are a lot of things that make this camcorder my favorite. Just the three off the top of my head right now, and we're going to go through this a little bit more in the video later. But the fact that, one, it's a Sony and it has a Zeiss lens. You know, when you take Sony and the Zeiss lens and combine it together, you're going to have a quality product. Number two, it has night shot. And Sony's always been really well known for having high quality night shot. This camcorder has it too. Last but not least, one of the things that I really like about this camcorder is the fact that batteries are exchangeable. You don't have to use the 2-hour battery that comes with it. You could swap it out for a much larger 8-hour battery, and we do. Now, there are a lot of other things that make this camera one of the best cameras that you can get for under $1,000, and we're going to be going through that in this video now. So, without further ado, I'm only going to cover the things that I feel like make this good for a paranormal team. There are a lot of other features this camera has that, honestly, I feel like should be on a much more expensive camcorder, but I don't want to list them all because if I did, this video would be like an hour long, and I don't want that. I want to try to keep it somewhat manageable for you guys, so you could probably get it in, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 minutes. If I can get it within 12 minutes, get this whole video done, I'd be pretty happy. So, like I said, I'm going to basically narrow it down to just the things that I feel are either paranormal related or really important for you to know. So without further ado, what we're going to do first is we're going to start with a video of us using the camcorder in one of our investigations. So go ahead and check it out.
Okay, Robert, Sam has a question for you. Alright, Bobby. You know the story, I've asked this before, about the newspaper article that claimed a gentleman was frightened by your property by a ghost in a long white sheet. Who was dressed up as the ghost?
Could you answer that again? Could you tell us who was in the long white sheet dressed as a ghost?
I just heard real low me.
Was it you, Robert? So yes. So it was Robert.
I heard it was me.
Thank you for confirming our suspicions.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow. That was 4 words in a row. Wow.
Yeah, like it was a sentence.
It was me. Yes.
Now, one of the first things you probably noticed after watching that video is how smooth the footage looks. That's because Sony, if I hold it up just right for you guys, has a balanced optical steady shot. So if I move the camera around, and I'm not actually sure if you can even see it, the lens on the inside is balanced to the point to where it's moving almost independently of the body itself. So imagine you're walking through your location with a cemetery, a field, on a house, abandoned barn, prison, hospital, and you're walking along, even though you're taking that step and you're going like this, the lens and the steady shot inside of here are going to make it so it's not quite as obvious. Now, I'm going to show you another video of ours with a different full spectrum camera that we have, and notice how shaky it is as we're walking along. And that's because this camera does not have the steady shot. And when you compare the two of them side by side with the Sony in the green because it's IR and the full spectrum in the pink because it's full spectrum, you can tell the difference between the two. The Sony is so much clearer, and when you get used to watching the Sony and then you go back to the full spectrum that doesn't have that steady shot, it almost makes you nauseous. The next really neat feature that I think helps us as paranormal investigators is the fact that, one, this LCD screen pops out, it flips all the way around, so if you like to do a lot of selfie stuff, you hold it like this, looks pretty good. But the main thing though is this LCD screen has programmable shortcuts. Now those programmable shortcuts basically allow you to take 3 of almost 24 different abilities that this camera can do and make it a lot easier to find that option. So for one, we use a lot of autofocus. I want to make sure that when I'm selected on Ghost Hunter Dan, it's not losing focus on his face, especially when you're in the dark, and it's very easy to lose focus. So when we're using IR, you have to use what's called spot focus. It basically allows you to touch the screen and you say, hey, focus in on that right there, and then that's it. It's locked on, it's going to stay focused. Now, when you're not in IR mode, you're in the regular 4K recording mode, you can use a different option, and the one that we use is called spot meter focus. This allows you to not only remain focused on your target, but it'll also adjust the brightness in the shot, so that, for example, if Ghost Hunter Dan is in a field, in a cemetery, and I'm pointing at him like this, I say focus on Ghost Hunter Dan, and I'm recording, right? And then all of a sudden he walks over here to the right under a tree. Well, the brightness is going to be different between under the tree and out in the field. So that spot meter and focus is going to make that minute adjustment so that it doesn't look really, really dark on his face. And I think having that is a really nice touch on the camera, but just the spot focus itself is really the one that I want you guys to pay attention to there, because especially in the dark when you're using IR, it's very easy to lose focus on your target. And there's nothing worse than having this great, amazing video, having great responses, your questions are on point, everything looks great, and all of a sudden, whoever's talking, his face is out of focus. And it's just like, oh, that looks horrible. It's embarrassing. It doesn't look professional at all. This camera fixes that. Put it on your shortcut here on the screen, tap that button, touch whoever's face it is on the screen itself, and then there you go. You're locked in, and now you should have no problems whatsoever. Now, with the LCD popped out like so, on the inside, on the body of the camera, there's a couple buttons here that I want you to pay attention to. First and foremost, we have our night shot button. And this is true night shot. It's green. I feel like green is more traditional, so I enjoy seeing green over the black and white, but that's just my preference. Unfortunately, if you are a black and white IR person, you might just have to learn to live with the green, or just change it in post. That's always an option too. But the button that I want you to pay real close attention to is actually at the top of this intersection here, and it is called My Voice Canceling. And what it does is, when you're holding the camera like this and you're saying, yeah, go ahead, Dan, talk about whatever you want to talk about, as I'm saying that, I'm closer to the microphone of the camera, which means I'm basically screaming into it, compared to Dan, who's 5-10 feet in front of me. He's much quieter. What My Voice Canceling does when you press it is it takes your volume, being so close to the microphone, and it just turns it down. It makes it a lot easier to listen to in your post-editing. And as the person that goes through the editing for our team, there's a lot of times where you can tell someone doesn't push the button, because they'll be sitting there going, is there anyone here that wants to talk to us? Hey, Dan, I think I heard something! You know, it's so much louder. And I use the big earphones. And when that happens, it hurts. It really does. And the fact that this camera has that built in, it's one of my favorite features, because it means that now me as the camera person, I don't have to worry about being too loud and ruining the shot for everybody else. On the top of the camera here, on this little door, we have our shoe. And this shoe will fit just about anything you want it to. So right here, I'm using a external microphone. It's a cheap one that we got. Not a big deal. You could use almost any microphone as long as it's got that... Oop, too tight. There we go. As long as it has that hot shoe connector right there, it'll slide right in. You don't need an adapter or anything like that, and you're good to go. Now you're probably thinking, oh man, well, you got that microphone. What do you do at this end? Right behind that little door there, you have a microphone, a headphone, and a multi-out. You pop this into the microphone slot, and now, instead of recording with the built-in microphone of the camera, you're recording with whatever's up here. We have a couple different microphones that we use. Not so much for this one, because the audio that's in the camera itself is actually really, really good quality. But we do use a wireless audio setup. And a lot of our episodes of Exhibition Entity, we're using the wireless because it's just easier for Dan to walk away and I still have really crisp audio of him. but it's all going to this camera here. The monitor and the receiver sit right on top there on that hot shoe. They all plug into the microphone in, and then the camera records all that audio, combines it together, and layers it over our video. So if you want to take your recordings to the next level and say, do what we do, and use wireless, for $600 to $800, to be able to use wireless, have that steady shot in really, really, really great quality IR, this is really, really hard to beat. So there's honestly so much more that we can talk about. The fact that the eyelet in the back here, the eyepiece, not only pops out, but it also pops up so that you can hold it like this. And then that way you're not at chest high holding it up here. I prefer holding my cameras down by my chest and then looking down at them. This eyepiece is really, really handy during the day when there's a glare on the screen. It's hard to see. I use it quite a bit. There's also the fact that batteries come out and are interchangeable, and you can get a much larger battery for a pretty good price. So, and they just pop right in, and then there you go. Now, the battery that came with our camcorder, it might be different for yours. You never know. Came with just about 2 hours of battery life. It is a Sony NP FV70, and our 6 hour right here is a Sony NP FV100. So if you look around those model numbers, you should find one that's going to fit with the camcorder. To be perfectly honest, the smaller one that came with it, 2 hours just isn't enough. We were chewing through that thing before the investigations were over. So we picked up a couple medium and larger size batteries, and now we have over 12 hours of battery life, and we can't go through that thing fast enough. So obviously, if you've ever had a camcorder before, when you do the paranormal, you know you have to get batteries. Because this records in 4K and it is such a high quality camera, the higher the settings are, the more it's going to chew through that battery. Especially if you start using the built-in light and all the other cool features, it's just going to drain it down. So yeah, I would definitely recommend getting other batteries in the description down below. I will have some links if you want to check some out. You don't have to buy the ones that I recommended there, but they should work for the camera. Last but not least, this is honestly one of the cons of the camcorder, but it does have its own pros, so I wanted to mention it just because for me it's an annoyance, but for you it might be something useful, and that is this hand strap right here. I never use the hand strap. I always have some type of handle to where I can hold the camera, either one of those giant C ones or a pistol grip down here. I prefer those. They're better on my wrist, and I feel like holding it like this for a long amount of time, it hurts. Unfortunately, like most of our other cameras that we take the straps off of, this one doesn't come off because of this USB plug. The USB plug is a part of the body, and unless you want to just kind of flap it around like this, you need the handle to be on here. So, okay, you're probably thinking, what does the USB plug do? It's actually the nice thing about this camera is the USB plug. If you are ever in a situation where you're out and about investigating and you forgot to bring your backup batteries, your battery chargers, your DC plug that goes in the bottom right there, you can not only transfer your video data from the camera to a computer, but you can also USB charge the camera off of this thing. That is honestly pretty nice. Now, I've never used it to charge before because I have multiple different chargers that will work with this camera, multiple battery chargers that I can take the battery out and pop it into. So I've never had the opportunity to really use it. I don't know if it charges faster or slower, but the fact that it is an option is actually a really nice one. So really, that's about it for the camera. There are a lot of other things that we can talk about. It's just, I don't want this to be a 40-minute video. And it very easily could be a 40-minute video. So, to kind of wrap everything up, we have the Sony AX 4K Handycam, AX33 4K Handycam. And there's just so much about this camcorder that I could go on and on and on about. But in terms of, for your investigations, we highly recommend it. We've been using it now for a year. It has become our main camcorder. You don't have to have another audio recorder with you. If you have this camcorder, it will pick everything up crystal clear, no problem. Now, if you decide that you do want to have an audio recorder with you, that's okay too, because there are times where we use 2 or 3 at one time, because sometimes one doesn't pick everything up. But if you're ever in a situation where you just stop by and you go, oh man, we need to ghost hunt this will do everything you need it to. So to wrap up this episode of Paranormal Tech for the Sony AX33 4K Handycam, yeah, if you have the opportunity to, if you have the money to, if you find it on sale, get this camcorder. And down below, in the description of this video, you're going to find a whole bunch of links. I will link that review for the camcorder so you can see some of the other features that it has. I'll drop a link to where you can buy it. I'll drop a couple accessory links for other batteries and things that we find useful for our camcorder. And last but not least, we'll have links to our videos. You'll find Expedition Entity on there to where you can see where this camcorder does the bulk of the work for Expedition Entity. And you'll see how we use our different accessories, our wireless audio, our illuminators with this camcorder, and it actually does a really good job. So without further ado, thank you so much for tuning in for our first episode here of Paranormal Tech, brought to you by ParanormalWarehouse.com. My name is Ghost Hunter Larry, and I'm from the Ghost Hunter Danville Project, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.